Welcome to Beyond Generations, a journey of a Japanese student in Seattle, discovering what happened to Japanese American people in Seattle during World War II, and how people have been trying to acknowledge, understand, and learn from it, and figure out how to connect it to the future. I am your host, Monica. Have you ever imagined that you would be asked to leave your university because you have a certain ancestry or you look a certain way? It happened to some students at the University of Washington 80 years ago. This episode is about some 440 former Japanese American students at the University of Washington who were forced out from the university during World War II. It is also about someone who has been trying to keep their stories alive. I had no idea some students at the university had been sent to the camps. I wanted to find out more about what the experience was like for them, because it is about people in my community, the community that I care about. Today on the University of Washington campus, you can see students from all over the world. They are chatting and walking together on campus, largely being unaware of the history of Japanese American students. In the autumn of 1941, there were over 400 Japanese American students at the university. They were forced out due to the evacuation order put in place in spring of 1942 after the executive order was declared by President Roosevelt earlier that year following the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. More than 120,000 Japanese Americans on the west coast of the United States were uprooted and sent to the incarceration camps. University of Washington students were no exception. Before the war, their life was a typical American college life. They had their versions of fraternity, the Japanese Student Club, and sorority, the Fuyokai. They majored in various disciplines including science, business, advertising, nursing, engineering, and pharmacy. They were nothing but ambitious and hopeful about their future. Their lives were shattered when the evacuation order was issued in spring 1942. A majority of them were sent to the incarceration camps, leaving their hopes and dreams behind.
The audience will please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
Good afternoon, and welcome to what can only be described as a very, very special convocation.
On Sunday, May 18th, 2008, the special academic convocation was taking place at Kane Hall on the University of Washington campus. It was to award honorary degrees to the former Japanese American students of 1941 and 1942 who were forced to leave the university and could not finish their degrees because of the evacuation order. It had been 66 years since they left the university.
My name is Theresa Mudrock, and my primary job is history librarian at the University of Washington. And one of the special projects I worked on was Interrupted Lives, Japanese American Students at the University of Washington, 1941 to 1942.
Theresa has been trying to make people become aware that there were University of Washington students who had to leave the university because of the evacuation order. She was one of the key players who worked behind the scenes to make the special convocation ceremony happen for the former Japanese American students.
And it was amazing to see all these very, very elderly people come back. So And it was a community event. I mean, not only the Nikkei Alumni Association, but also the Japanese churches in the area all kind of helped and came together to celebrate.
Around 200 people, including former students, their families, and friends, joined the ceremony from across the country. Some came from Hawaii, California, or even Canada. It was their day, although it happened 66 years too late. The time past showed in their gray hair and wrinkles on their faces. Some needed help to stand up from their seats to receive their diplomas or were sitting in wheelchairs. However, their eyes were showing the same pride and joy that any other graduating students would show.
They got their award, they got all this attention, and more people learned about the injustice of that time because of that ceremony. And some people actually, even when they died, they wrote it in their obituary, that they had come and got their award. So that tells me that it meant something.
It meant something not only to those who received the degrees.
A number of people worked on the ceremony where they got their diplomas, and people have said it was the best thing they ever did in their work life. So I think it is. It's probably my greatest accomplishment in my work life is making a difference.
Frank Shinichiro Tanabe was one of the former students who came to attend the ceremony in 2008 to receive the honorary degree. He came to Seattle all the way from Hawaii. Frank's name may ring a bell to some of you. In 2012, a photo of Frank at the age of 93 on his deathbed casting an absentee ballot in the presidential election went viral and inspired thousands of people. Densho, a non-profit organization preserving stories of the World War II incarceration of Japanese Americans, interviewed Frank in 2008 when he came to Seattle for the special convocation. He remembers being a University of Washington student on the day he heard the news of Pearl Harbor.
Actually, I was living at the Japanese Students Club, and I guess we were all playing cards or something in the living room, and the radio was on. And then when the announcement of Pearl Harbor came, everybody was more or less shocked, and you could just hear a pin drop. And it was quiet almost throughout the radio announcement. And it kept going on. And I think everybody was thinking about what's going to happen to us, and what's my family going to do, and so on. And most of the people left by the end of the day. They took off and went back home, the White River Valley and Yakima, Wapato, and Spokane, and so on, until there was very few of us left. And we're sort of in a state of suspended animation. We didn't know what to do. And with very little discussion or talk about it. It was all contained within ourselves. Everybody was just thinking about themselves quietly without, talking to the other people. It was very quiet.
When the evacuation order was put in place, he was removed from the university and sent to the Puyallup Assembly Center in Washington, which they called Camp Harmony.
Well, see, they started the evacuation by streets or avenue, closest to the waterfront went first, and so on, the next area, and so on. And we were the last one at the university area, so we were the last one. And there was 5 of us left. And I don't know how we got down to the bus station, but anyway, we got there, and then we got into Camp Harmony in Puyallup. And when we reported in to register, the authorities, I don't know if it was Caucasian or Japanese American.
Mitsi Uyeta Mihara was another former University of Washington student who attended the special convocation ceremony. In the interview by the university before the convocation, she recalls,
"It was always in my mind and my parents' mind that I should go to the University of Washington because they stressed that education would get you somewhere after in the work world. And it was a assumed fact that I would be coming to the UW because that was the only facility that was readily available to me. Looking around, I didn't know where any of the buildings were, and I was standing right in front of the building that I was looking for.
the attack on Pearl Harbor changed her life just like it did to other Japanese American students.
Terrible shock to me, although I knew that war would be starting soon as I'd been keeping up with the newspaper articles. And then the thing was, what is going to happen to me as well as my parents who were not citizens because they weren't eligible to become citizens. I went through many experiences which fortified my self in the fact that when I was walking down the Ave over there, one white lady came right directly at me and spat at me and said, "You dirty Jap." And from then on, I knew I was going to run into a lot of those kind of prejudices and ill feelings toward us. And then on the way to school, when I would take the bus, the Chinese would be wearing their Chinese badge saying, "I'm Chinese," to distinguish themselves. At the time that I had to leave the university, I had just turned 21. And that year was a year that I was going to be eligible to vote. And that made me very sad that my rights were taken away. And then when I had to leave my home, I had to lease it out to an Italian couple. At that time, when the evacuation notices were posted on the telephone post, it didn't include the Germans or Italian descent person. I thought it was really unfair. But I did lease my house out to this Italian couple. And I left some of our precious kimonos and things like in the basement. And when I came back, it was gone.
Frank remembers the time when he received the invitation for the special ceremony from the University of Washington to award him the honorary degree after 66 years. At the time, Frank had 2 sons and 2 daughters, as well as 5 grandchildren.
When I learned that I was going to get a diploma for the university, I called my son, Ike, in Boise. I says, "What am I going to do with a diploma? I'm not going to be sending out resumes anytime soon." So he says, "Well, why don't you hang it on the wall along with his and his sisters, each of whom double-dipped in diplomas." And he says, "We'll hang up the diploma to be earned by his daughter, who was finishing up her second year on campus." And he says the wall will be lined with diplomas of 3 generations of the family from UW.
Although he had been living in Boise and Hawaii for the several years before the ceremony, to Frank, there is no place like Seattle.
Oh, it's home, yeah, really. First thing I do is walk the waterfront and have my fish and chips and clam chowder at steamers, and I like to climb the steps to Pike Place Market. Oh, I used to walk all over Seattle. Yeah, I used to walk along the lake from Mount Baker to Madrona, and then take the bus. And we lived on Beacon Hill, so then we take the bus home, and I'd walk out of Beacon Hill. I'd walk down the waterfront to Seattle Center, and sometimes I walk the other way down Rainier Avenue to where they had the big end of the trolley lines. Yeah.
In the interview by the university for the special convocation in 2008, Mitsi said,
I feel that I've come full circle, that I'm really a part of the university. It's like a family to me, because 3 of my children have graduated from the University of Washington, and a couple of my grandchildren are coming to the U right now. So I feel like I'm embraced by the whole family of the university.
The obituary for Mitsi, published by the Seattle Times on the March 4, 2012, tells how much getting a degree from the University of Washington and officially becoming the university's alumna called a Husky meant to her. Here I quote, Mitsuye Mihara passed away peacefully at her home in Seattle on February 24, 2012, at the age of 90. She received an honorary degree from the UW in May 2008. She was very happy and proud that she could be called a Husky. A celebration of Mitsi's life will be held at the Japanese Presbyterian Church. In Mitsi's spirit, the family invites all attending to dress in colorful, floral, or UW Husky colors or attire. Theresa, the history librarian at the University of Washington, had still been trying to track down the records of all the former 440 Japanese American students, even to this day. Her goal is to make more students' biographies available to the public on the university library website.
I think it puts real people there. I think people, when you learn about big historical events, you lose sort of the personal touch, right? It becomes more distant. And so if you learn more about each individual, it makes it much more closer. It makes it much more real for people, I think. It's also, I think everyone is kind of due some kind of credit for their lives. I mean, most of us will die and no one will ever hear of us again, right? We'll be gone. So I want to just be able to put a little bit of information out there that will live beyond their lives, beyond their children's lives.
Neither Frank nor Mitzi are in this world any longer, but their stories are still alive. It feels like a gift to us, the gift we are to pass on to future generations so that their stories will continue to inspire people into the future. The interview of Mitsi Uyeta Mihara is a courtesy of UW Libraries. The interview of Frank Shinichiro Tanabe is a courtesy of Densho. Special thanks to UW Video, Theresa Mudrock, and Ed Escalona. Music by Zakar Balaha. Join our community on Instagram at beyondgenerations.seattle. Tune in for the next episode about a Japanese American history mural in Seattle and about the artist who made it and her motivation. Thank you for listening. This is Monica. You have been listening to Beyond Generations. My journey of discovery will continue.